Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Kline, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devan Kline.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Bootcamp podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community. Let's go, Burn Nation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. My name is Devan Kline, and I am the co-founder and visionary along with my wife, Morgan Kline, and we are the hosts of your podcast. And today we have a new edition of the podcast. Lindsay Strickert is here from our Concord, North Carolina location. And this segment is a reflection of what we do inside of our gyms at every location. It's focus meetings. And a focus meeting is a one-on-one sit down with a member and a trainer. And we try to go beyond weight and body fat and push-ups. And we try to transcend that and really talk about life and mental, emotional, spiritual, physical goals as well, relational goals around your career, your time, your work, your money. I mean, all these things that get to make us human are all impacted by the journey that we have. And, you know, we pride ourselves, it says right in our mission statement at Burn, it says we vow to educate, influence, and inspire every life we touch. And this podcast is an extension of that. And I'm excited for you guys to be able to get introduced to Lindsay Strickert today. And as we are talking, I hope that you are sitting back and really thinking about your journey and your Burn Bootcamp story and really allowing Lindsay's story to be yours. And so, Lindsay, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. It takes a lot of vulnerability to come in front of thousands of people and talk about some of the deepest things that have happened and will happen in your life. And for that, we're forever grateful. And I just know that you're going to inspire so many people out there to either come forward and be more vulnerable or to elevate their experience of life by asking for help. And like you said, as we were walking up the stairs to sit down for the conversation, do something that makes you really uncomfortable, right?
Yes.
So why don't we get started and walk us through your Burn Bootcamp story, your story first of Lindsay and what brought you into Burn. And my goal with this conversation, like we were saying, is to have you and I both walk away from this and be better people for having it. It's a two-way street. It's a conversation where we'll pitch and catch, and we don't have a time limit. We're just going to go. And hopefully we'll know when to stop. But let's definitely get started with your background. Let's go deep and let's talk about where you were raised, where you were born, and maybe just give you as much time as you need to work through that.
Yeah. So I was born in Lakeland, Florida, which I don't know where on a map that is. I'm terrible with geography. But we moved to Sharpsburg, Georgia, like before I started kindergarten. So I kind of just claim being from Georgia. Grew up there, went to college there, went to Georgia State University, which was a huge difference from where I grew up, just growing up in kind of a small town and then plopping myself in downtown Atlanta for college, which honestly, now that I think about it, kind of is the first time I was like, I could take this path or I could do something completely different out of my comfort zone. Like, I'm going to leave suburban Georgia and I'm just going to dive into downtown Atlanta. So glad I did. Made lots of great friends, a lot of people that I'm still really close with today. And then flash forward, I graduated in 2013 and I moved to Charlotte in 2014 to follow my husband who works for NASCAR Productions. Who, by the way, was making fun of me all day today because I'm so nervous about this, and this is kind of what he does all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I moved here, I kind of lost that sense of community that I had. I left all of my family behind, all of my friends. I knew no one except my husband, or not even my husband, he was my fiance. He traveled all the time, and so it was kind of just me, like, figuring out what to do. I got a job. I still work with the same company, but the position I had back then, I absolutely hated. Miserable, did it for like from 2014 to 2020, honestly hated every second of it. I'm happy now in my position. COVID kind of blessed me in a weird way with that. But yeah, so moved here. We were planning our wedding. I, unfortunately, when you're planning a wedding, the whole thing is like losing weight and being your best self. I gained probably like 20 pounds when I moved here because honestly, I'm pretty sure I was dealing with like depression and just didn't know it. So we got married, still just never, I had like friends at work and my husband had friends, but they, were all work friends who traveled all the time. So I never really got to meet like their wives or their girlfriends. And just never built that sense of community. Like we went home to Georgia pretty much any time we had a free weekend that he was home, we were in Georgia because that was where we felt comfortable. Got married, and then 2016 rolled around, and unfortunately my mom got sick with cancer in August of 2016, and by October she was gone. It was really quick, which looking back is sort of a blessing. Like, I'm glad that she didn't have to suffer and we didn't have to suffer through that. That was a couple years that I honestly don't really remember. Like, I was just kind of in the weeds, drank way too much alcohol. Had a baby in 2018, which did kind of pull me out of that place that I was in because I had obviously a child that I had to be a good person for. Raised him, adjusted to mom life and everything. And I mentioned it on my paper, but after having him, like obviously when I was pregnant and stuff, I gained weight as you do. When I had him though, like everything just fell off so quickly that I was in a place of like confidence, at least in my body, that I hadn't been in since I was in like college before I moved to Charlotte and gained a bunch of weight. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I can deal with this. This is fun. 2021 was, well, we had COVID, obviously. 2021 was kind of a rough year. My dad passed away. My uncle passed away. I had an aunt pass away. I remember, and it was all like within, like a couple months of each other. I remember at one point telling my husband, like, I'm just going to sit on the couch and maybe if I don't move, like, no one else I love will die. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't fun. But, kind of rebuilt from that, had my daughter in 2022. Something about having a daughter, I'm sure every woman can understand, like, that's just like a whole nother pressure that you put on yourself. And I'm sure you can relate, like, having a son. I know my husband kind of feels the pressure with our son, but when I had my daughter, not only did I feel like, okay, I need to become the best version of myself because I want to be a role model for her and someone that she can look to and derive confidence from, but also it kind of helped me repair like that huge missing link I had in my life, which was that mother-daughter connection. So even just having her was so like healing for me. But body-wise, I had her and I was like, okay, cool. This will be like when I had Landon. The weight's going to fall off. I'm going to be great. And it didn't. And that honestly was like one of the first times I've ever looked in the mirror and not been happy with like my body, which I'm happy to say that was kind of a foreign experience for me, but it still didn't feel good. I have worked from home since COVID, and so I was able to have her home with me for about a year. And in that, I just kind of quickly realized, like, okay, I work from home, so I don't really leave the house during the week unless it's like to run an errand or something. Now I've got my baby home with me, which is such a privilege, and I don't take that for granted. I know there are people who would kill to be in that position. But after about 3 months of it, I was like, okay, I have to find something. Like, my husband plays golf. I just didn't really have like a hobby. And, he would say, go get out of the house. So like I would go walk around Target or like go grab a friend to have dinner with. But like those things weren't fulfilling me. Like, yeah, they're fun, but that gets boring. Like I can only stroll around Target so much. And that's kind of where Burn comes in. So January, or actually it was around Christmas of 2022, you guys were doing like the 4 for 69, which is probably how a lot of people get started. My sister-in-law went to Burn at that time. So I talked to her about it, and she had told me, amazing things, obviously. So I bought the voucher and then like put it off until January 11th is the day that I signed up for my first camp. I just remember that because it's my sister-in-law's birthday. And yeah, I stepped in the door, did not know a single soul. I talked to one of the BAs back and forth on Instagram a little bit because that made me feel better, just kind of chatting with her. And I at least knew like somebody. But yeah, I walked in, it was burst training. I don't remember who. I think Christina, who worked there back then, was probably training because she was the head trainer. And I was sold from day one. Like 20 minutes in, I was like, "This is amazing."
You felt the Burn energy right when you walked in.
Yeah, and just having like a room full of people, even though I didn't know a lot or any of them at that point, it was so easy to like strike up conversations with people because you already had that common ground. A lot of us were moms. A lot of us were women, obviously. And yeah, like I'm not the most outgoing person in the world. I'm not really like shy. It's hard for you. I'm never going to be the person who's like walking away from a party knowing like 10 new people. I always need like an emotional support, like extrovert to help introduce me to people, but I didn't have that. But yeah, just having that like common ground that, okay, at least we all go to Burn, so we can talk about like, wow, that leg day really sucked, or like Mike made me want to die during my 300th burpee that I did.
So when you started doing your first couple camps, you kind of had a slight awakening. It sounds like oh, maybe this is what I'm looking for. How did life start to get better from there? Yeah,
I think I didn't realize how much I missed like being an athlete. I grew up playing soccer. I started when I was 5. Actually, my dad coached a team of 6 and under, and somehow got me on it. It was an all boys team. They must have like lied about my birthday or something, but I, just never quit playing soccer. My older brother played soccer, so it was just kind of, monkey see, monkey do. But I played soccer all through high school and then played a little bit in college, but it was like sorority intramurals, like not competitive. And it kind of awakened like that piece of me that I didn't even realize I missed. Because on those days, I mean, like when you're doing especially like a cardio or like a conditioning camp, you're like going through something with the people around you. And you do get into like that team mentality, even though we're all working toward our own goals and aspirations, and it's not about like winning a soccer game. It just kind of clicked that part of my brain back on for me. And just everyone is just so welcoming at Concord. Like the trainers really make an effort to get to know you. The Burn ambassadors make an effort to introduce you to people. I started bringing my daughter with me. I think she was probably like 6 months old, so March or April was probably her first time I brought her to Child Watch. And then I met more people because then you're waiting in line for your kids, and then you can kind of look at like, okay, I go to Burn with these people, but now I know like these people are moms, and so I can talk to them about like their kids. And then back in November, one of the members had posted like, hey, is anyone interested in joining a book club that I want to start? And I love reading, which is another thing that I've kind of picked back up since joining Burn, honestly. Like when you work out and like take so much effort into making yourself feel better like physically, I think naturally you start to do things that make you feel better in other areas of your life. And that was one thing that I kind of wanted to focus on, was like, all right, in the evenings, like if my husband's watching a football game that I could care less about, or like working or something, maybe I stop scrolling Instagram and like remember how much I love reading. And so I had kind of just had like that awakening, and then she posted about starting a book club. So I was like, sign me up. And through that, I've made pretty good friends. And like little by little, I just feel like I'm kind of getting that sense of community that I've honestly been missing since I moved to North Carolina, and it's been 10 years.
Good. I'm glad that you found your people that you can relate to and that have the same challenges and similar desires to you. And that's what community is all about, right? We get to, Burn is this symbol. It's a symbol at this point. It's like the B is bigger. Like when Morgan and I started it, we never realized it would be, a symbol for something that people can connect themselves to, that, stands for a set of morals and principles and values and standards and how to live your life. There's a lifestyle blueprint kind of baked into it. And it's really amazing to see you using the tool, right, and building the house with the hammer.
Yeah.
How was your relationship with your parents growing up?
Both of my parents were highly functioning alcoholics, but definitely alcoholics. That wasn't hidden from us. It was just kind of a normal part of life. I told the story to my mother-in-law once I was comfortable enough to tell her, but I started dating my husband when we were 17. And I remember one of the first times I was over at their house, we had watched a movie, and it was probably 7:00, and Matt's mom was like, I really want some ice cream. I'm going to go get Dairy Queen. Does anyone want anything? And it blew my mind that someone could get in a car and drive somewhere at 7:00 because they were sober. And that just wasn't my experience. During the week, my parents, they both worked full time. They'd come home. They weren't bad parents. We always had home cooked meals, and they did love us. But by 6:00, they were passed out drunk on the couch. And on the weekends, if you had something you needed to accomplish and it wasn't a day that we had soccer games, so they didn't have a choice but to not drink, you better get it accomplished by noon because it's game over after that. So that's something that, my brother and I kind of lived with. And I think once I got old enough to drink, I got closer with my parents just because we could kind of partake in it with them, which isn't healthy at all. But, I especially got close with my mom because we had something to bond over. Our thing was going out to Mexican and getting margaritas and then going and sitting by the pool. And it was fun, but, that's not a great thing to have a common bond over.
Did you have a healthy relationship with her in general? How did she teach you the principles, the values around health, around fitness, around consumption, around the way you treat food?
I honestly don't think they taught us any of that. We did, I don't remember ever really picking up fast food or going out to eat when I was younger. I'm sure we did. It doesn't stick in my head. I remember having a mom who worked full time, probably got home at 5:00 in the afternoon and took the time to make a home cooked meal, which I do. I respect that now that I have kids. Sometimes I'm like, how the heck did she do this? I'm running around the kitchen at 5:00 and my kids are screaming at me and I'm like, how? I just want to go to Chick-fil-A. So yeah, honestly, I never really had a struggle with food because I never really had a struggle with my body, and I just don't think it was really anything we talked about. I was athletic, and so naturally, I don't know, I just never really thought about health or nutrition or anything like that, honestly, until going to Burn. Because it gave me a reason to want to put good things in my body so I could see results. And yeah, as far as alcohol, I remember trying to talk to them as I got older, and I think their defense mechanism was just to say, I'm the parent, you're the kid, and look at all these things you have. We had a good life. We, got to play soccer. We didn't go without anything. We got cars when we turned 16. We had everything we needed. It was just we also had parents who drank way too much, and yeah.
What was the relationship with your dad, you and your dad growing up?
One part of their drinking is that, they would get to a certain point, of course, where they would get in fights, and my dad was abusive to my mom. So we had, a pretty complicated relationship. It honestly wasn't even complicated. I wouldn't even say we had a relationship. I was scared of him growing up. I didn't really, honestly, just kind of stayed out of his way. So we really didn't have a relationship at all until after my mom passed away. And then it was kind of like, all right, we're going to take you under our wing. And, you know, we weren't just going to let him struggle with that. And he did. I think he had a lot of demons when she passed away and a lot of regrets because they were in a good place at that point. But that was really, you know, once she was gone, those were some of the first times I had spent time with my dad alone. Like, he would come visit us in Charlotte, and the first time he ever did, I was like, what am I going to do with you all weekend? Like, I've never even really had a conversation with you. So the relationship was getting repaired, and then having kids, I think, or like us having, me and my brother having children, I think kind of was, well, I know, like, it was hard for him to watch. And once we had a couple of kids under our belt, like, he just kind of started declining. And I think part of it was, like, you know, my husband and I talk all the time about how cool it's going to be one day to, like, sit back and watch our kids be parents and get to have grandkids. Like, you dream about that, I think, naturally as a parent. Like, you just picture that stage of your life. And here he was, like, living that out, but his wife wasn't with him. And he ultimately died essentially from drinking himself to death. So.
And at the same time, you had some other relatives around you, as you mentioned, who passed as well. And, you know, thank you for sharing all that. And, you know, it seems like the way you speak about it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you've used a lot of this tragedy for yourself and your family and your children and your husband in a positive way, in a way where you've honored your mom and your dad and focused on the things about them that you did love, and also learned from the things that you didn't love that could show you the way. Do you feel like that is the case, and that you're at a stage in your life where you're standing on a platform of forgiveness to move forward?
Yeah. I can't say that I look to them as, like, role models necessarily when I think about my own parenting, but we were talking about it before we started recording. Like, I kind of got a blueprint of, like, how I didn't want to be, which in a way I am thankful for, because it does help me, like, map out, all right, this is the kind of parent that I do want to be, because I have that example. And I know there are people that have way worse examples than I have, I'm sure. Well, I know, but yeah, like, I can look at them and kind of I had a manager back in the day who used to say, like, take the meat and spit out the bones. Like, that's kind of how I look at that. Like, I can take the things that I loved about them and use that to, you know, model my own parenting journey and marriage.
That's a one heck of a perspective to have, you know, and I hope that you find time to be proud of yourself and your husband for, you know, going through alcoholism is not hard any way you want to cut it.
Yeah.
You could say they're functioning or not. It doesn't, you know, watching somebody out of control of their own life. That's what alcoholism is. You are imprisoned by this bottle. You have to have it in order to have life.
Yeah.
And that's the perspective, although not the reality. And then you take that and you use that, you know, for you and your family, and to move forward. And life is admirable, and hopefully that you find time to find gratitude for that too. I'm cut from the same cloth, and the only way we move forward, the only way to move forward is through forgiveness.
Yeah.
And not holding any resentment or being bitter in any way. And so it's so glad to hear somebody cut from the same cloth as me to really take that perspective by choice. Which means that you're leading your life in a lot of categories. And so I guess my next question would be, you know, we're sitting here today, you've got this background in which you've clearly done some introspective work. You've clearly used your memory, scanned the past, what here serves me, what doesn't, and then brought that forward. You have your own family, 2 kids. What you said, 2 and 5, 5 and 2?
Almost 2 and 5, yeah.
Okay, good. And your husband, Matt? Beautiful family of 4. You're at the gym with some great friends, and you're connected into the community that you live. You got a better job. You know, all the things seem to be going your way. What vision do you have for yourself for the future? If you were to look out 10 years and you were to say, hey, this is our ideal lifestyle for myself and my family. Have you thought a lot about that?
I just by nature am a terrible like goal setter. I don't do a good job at looking to the future. I kind of just live life in the present, which is something that I do like at work, for example, when we have like our end of year conversations and they're like, so what are your goals for next year? I'm like, I don't know. Like, tell me what to do and I'll do it. I did recently, so I used to work, or I work for Strayer University, and I used to work in admissions, which basically meant I was on the phones all day talking to students who wanted to go to school, which is a great job for people who love it. I personally hated every second of it. Like, I don't know why, I just didn't. And I think mainly what it was I worked like 2 minutes down the road at the business park on the other side of the interstate, but you know, I was sitting there in this cubicle and doing this job, and my husband was out like traveling and like getting to have all these cool experiences. And I was just like, I had to be there a set amount of hours. I had no flexibility. And I was just like, is this really like what my life is going to be? Like my mom, that was kind of the same thing. She worked in logistics, but it was, you know, she was in a cubicle and she didn't love it. And she just kind of maintain the status quo and like was complacent, I guess. And maybe through watching her, it just made me be like, all right, I don't want to do this. And then of course having a kid, you know, I would sit there and it'd be 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock before I would leave sometimes. And I'm like, how am I ever going to be at his soccer practices? Or how am I ever going to be able to like, what are we going to do when he starts school? So I took a huge leap during COVID. Strayer like restructured a ton, as I'm sure, or every business did, and launched like all these new teams. And one of the teams they launched was called the Transformation Team back then. And essentially what it was meant to do was like have a group of people who could work together to come up with like innovative ideas to make the job of being an admissions officer more enjoyable. So I was like, I hate being an admissions officer, so
perfect
who
job.
better for the job?
Right.
Somehow I got that job, and because of COVID, I worked from home, and that never went away. But I recently actually kind of jumped ship from that team, which I loved, and it was an amazing group of people in that season of my life, like having 2 small kids, and one of them who was at home with me. I was in a position where I was an individual contributor, and that's all I could handle. Like I didn't need people under me. I didn't needed to be responsible for having like one-on-ones and handling disciplinary stuff. Like I was good. But I was approached probably November of last year about jumping to our like Omni communications team, which I was told I knew a lot about just through things I did. And now that I'm on that team, I'm like, I know nothing. So I don't know what you guys thought I knew, but thanks. But, you know, now work is, I feel like I'm honestly taking like a college course every day when I sit down to do my job. I'm just learning so much. All of that to say, though, the goal with that position is to eventually build up a department that is under me that handles all of like the Omni communications for Strayer. So when I think 10 years down the road, what that's going to look like, hopefully it's me running a huge team of people and completely redoing like all of the communications for Strayer and figuring out how to actually be like an Omni communications company and take advantage of AI and like all these crazy things that are coming out right now. And then I think naturally my son starts kindergarten in August, so that's going to be a huge life change. So when I think 10 years down the road, like I hope that he is thriving in school and has a group of buddies and has the confidence that I never really had growing up. Honestly, didn't have until I started at Burn, as cheesy as that sounds. And same thing with my daughter. Like, I hope I'm just somebody that she can look to be like, dang, my mom, like, she has confidence. Like, I can pull that from her because I didn't have that growing up.
There's, in the book we just wrote, Morgan and I, there's something called the Burn lifestyle. And I wrote a little exercise in there, and I'd like to invite you to do that with me.
Okay.
Because I hear some specificity in categories of your life that mean the most to you. It seems to me that you're ultimately driven by the relationship that you have with your kids, both emulating the role your parents played in the things that you loved, but also filling the voids that weren't there. And that ultimately that's the thing pulling you forward, right? Is some version of themselves down the road when they're adults and they're maybe your age and they're looking back at you and being like, Mom, I know the whole family story and you did it and we're proud of you. And then secondarily challenged by work and ambitious person you are, huh? Yeah, challenged by work, and it seems that way to me. So we have 2 of the 8 areas covered. And I think this is an important framework to look through, because the framework in which you have for yourself just sets up the kind of institution on top of it. And so if you look at the lifestyle, what we call in the book, the Burn lifestyle, it has 8 categories: body, emotions, mind, spirit, relationship, time, work, and money. And if you boil down all aspects of being in the physical world and the mental world and the spiritual world, you're going to find these 8 pieces. The spirit, obviously, being the spiritual world, the body, the emotions and the mind being the mental world, and then body, time, work, money, relationships. Those are all things here physically while we're here shaking hands, high-fiving people, doing workouts, all the physical things. Okay, so there's a question that I want to pose to you. So think of these eight pieces of the pie, and as we're doing this exercise, I'll give you some reminders and some prompts. What I want you to go ahead and do is close your eyes, and we're going to take maybe 2 minutes, and I just want you to have a real deep, controlled breath, kind of in and out. And for a moment, I want you to visualize just one single day. It's not a day that is forced upon you, but it's a day in which you control from top to bottom. It's a day in which you're with who you'd like to be with, where you'd like to be, doing what you love, how you love it, wherever you love it. And it's the ideal day. And you had to repeat this day over and over and over and over, which means you better like the things that you do in this day. If you could give me an ideal day, think about this story. You can keep your eyes closed. You're going to think about a story of a day, an ideal day. And I'll start some prompts and I'll go for about a minute or 2. And I just want you to literally visualize and feel how this day feels. And then we're going to talk about it, okay?
Okay.
All right, the day starts. What time is it?
Hopefully my children don't wake up at like 6 a.m. My day, probably it's great when it starts at like 6:30 and I have a good 30 minutes to sometimes an hour if I get lucky to just kind of be by myself before I have to jump into mom mode.
So the first half an hour is solitude.
Mm-hmm.
So you value solidarity, solitude in your life. You need time for you.
Yes.
Okay. Now it's 6:30. What do we do next? And who are we with? Are we eating? Are we taking care of ourselves? Are you having a minute with the family? What do you do here?
6:30. Hopefully my children are still sleeping. My husband's probably just waking up, but I'm the kind of person, like, the second my eyes open, I'm out of bed. I don't really take time to, like, I don't know, I just don't have to, like, ease out of sleeping, I guess. He, is in the bathroom doing whatever he does for, like, 30 minutes, so I'm probably still sitting on the couch, like, maybe I've had a cup of coffee at that point. I'm reading a book. I may be watching, like, Good Morning America or something. But kids hopefully are still sleeping till like 7:15.
So he's up and the kids are sleeping still.
Yeah.
So you want some time to connect. So we're getting into this relationship bucket. Time to connect with yourself is important to you. And then secondarily, time to connect with your spouse is very important to you. Mm-hmm. Then what happens? Then it's 7:30. You got to get going here.
The kids are downstairs. I love a day that, it's not immediately turn on a TV and there's like cartoons playing. If it was my perfect day every day, we'd have like music playing. And if it's nice out, I love to just open up. We have a ton of windows like in our downstairs. And when it's nice outside, my favorite thing to do first thing in the morning is just open all of those windows, pull up all the blinds, like let the sunshine in, have music playing, have it be one of those perfect mornings where, you know, Landon and Avery just love whatever I decided to give them for breakfast, and they're sitting there eating it without complaints.
Okay, so we can stop right there and you can open your eyes. And we would continue this all the way through every half an hour or hour. We'd continue this all the way through the day. And we'd write it out. And we would then use that story as the vision, right? So a lot of times when we set a vision for ourselves where we need to be this goal-oriented person, it's not really necessarily that we need to be goal-oriented. It's just that we need to have a directional conversation of what north, south, east, west, like what direction are we going? There's no right direction. There's no wrong direction. It's only to you. And so, you know, by continuing this exercise and having, you know, walking yourself through, if there was no limitations, if there's no consequences, if there was if there's nothing holding me back, if there's no preconceived notions that my mom or my dad put into my head or my university professors told me something and I've been living my life in the confines of what other people have given me, the rules and regulations. What if all of that didn't exist and I was just able to do exactly what I wanted? Like my version of success is what I want, do what I want with who I want, when I want, where I want, how I want.
Right.
And all the things that you were describing right there have nothing to do with what most people will consider successful, right? Monies and cars, and it's about the time you get to spend with the people that you get to love. And it's, for what it's worth, if you haven't had an opportunity to actually put a piece of paper, put down on a piece of paper with a pen or a pencil, this ideal day in this circumstance in these scenarios, it might take an hour and a half to do it the right way.
Yeah.
But doing so has, I know, helped so many people in Burn Nation, especially members that I was able to do it with. And maybe in a few months you can get yours on paper and come back and do a follow-up here. I think it'd be nice for people to see the progression and what happens when we focus on ourselves holistically like this. And so, you know, and then you kind of audit your story and you just make sure that body and mind and emotion and all those 8 pieces of the pie are in there somewhere. And that's the direction. That's the conversation. And it's not like that's a trophy. It's not like it's something we have to go to attain, right? The next question is, what's stopping you today from doing those things, right? What is stopping you from living that? What you just described to me there in a morning seems like the only way that something can get in the way of that every day has to do with something that starts with a Y and ends with a OU.
Yeah.
Right? So what happens is a lot of times when we ask ourselves, hey, what is actually stopping me from reaching this? There's not much in the way.
Yeah.
Right?
You're right.
So that would be an interesting exercise for you to do.
Yeah.
Do you have anything where you've set any type of directional conversation or goals on a piece of paper?
Not really. Like, I am OCD about a to-do list, but that, you know, goes a week in advance, a month in advance maybe. But no, I've never even thought about goal setting. That's such like a simple way to think about that. And it's such a it's not overwhelming in any way to just sit there and be like, what is my perfect day? So that is something I'll have to reflect on. You've
got a very positive approach to life. People that have a negative approach to life, I'll often recommend them to write down what they're running away from as a primary mode of motivation. Because my goal is to get you from this living in a primary state of negative energy to positive energy. But I can't want that more than you do. So your positivity and your energy frequency that you're already on in life, I mean, you're on this trajectory that if you were to have a directional conversation, you were to dial in specificity, like start to dial in, even if it's completely wrong, and it probably is, and it will change. But focus and you shall find, right? Yeah. Have you ever been somebody that sets goals, or you have always been somebody that has a more present focus?
I definitely focus more on the present. And I don't know if it's because life has showed me that life is short and you never really know when it's going to be over. Like, maybe in some way that holds me back from thinking too far into the future, but I don't know. I just focus on the present. I'm the present. And I'm really not a good goal setter.
I don't think you have to put pressure on yourself to be a good goal setter, but it's just the legacy that, like, think about it that way. It's the legacy that I want to create. And let me have part of my legacy being able to show my kids when I'm in 30 years, let me show them the first time that I really put my legacy on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Like, how powerful is that? And then to show it to them and to see that their reaction was only, to showing them that it was exactly what was meant by writing the letter in the first place, you know? And I have a very deep sense of personal pride around that. But I don't think it's to mistake being lost in the moment, right? Having a direction, saying I want to be a Grammy award-winning actor doesn't mean that I don't focus on making the scene. Yeah. Right? It just means that when I'm making the scene, I have to be present, because to be where I want to be, I can't let the day get in front of me, if you will. Yeah. So what do you, when I ask you this question, I want to hear your reaction. What is stopping you from getting to where, in some resemblance of what you just described to me?
Honestly, nothing. I think I've just been doing a lot of work on myself recently, and, inside and outside. And so I think just honestly allowing myself this space to think about things like that is probably what's stopping me, to honestly just sit there and think, like, what do I want my life to look like? Because there really isn't much that's stopping me from that. I mean, there's obviously, like, I can't up and, like, move to, I don't know, Turks and Caicos and quit my job, but I also wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, I think it's not something I've ever given myself time to think about.
Well, that can be maybe something you take away from this is some focus meeting homework. Yeah. Is to write out that story and then read it and reread it and edit it. And it becomes now, we call it a North Star goal. It becomes something that it's only tangible. It's only manifest when it's manifest. It's only here when it's here. There's no forcing nature to it. We're not trying to control the outcome. Yeah. It's just, if I let go of the outcomes, if I let go of trying to control things in my life, that's when we end up ultimately getting what we want. With your fitness journey, how did you start? Where are you at now? What are you struggling with? What desires do you have?
How did I start?
You've always been an athlete, right? Yeah. Walked into Burn. You're like, okay, this clicks.
I think when I walked into Burn, it wasn't even so much. I mean, yes, I mentioned, like, I wasn't exactly happy with the way my body looked, but I was craving that community more than anything. And I kind of walked into it as, like, I'm going to take that away from this. And if I start to be more confident in the way my body looks, that's kind of secondary. I remember my first focus meeting, that's what we talked about. And I honestly was like, like I just said, like, the results that I see when I look in the mirror, that's honestly the bonus to me of going to Burn. I get just so fulfilled by, like, walking in there every day and seeing people and seeing friends, and that, whatever the muscles that I'm building and the weight that's falling off, I'm like, all right, cool, that's a benefit of all of this pain that I'm putting myself through. I think in the gym, the thing I struggle with the most, like, if you put a rep count in front of me, mentally, it just makes it so much harder for me for some reason. Like, today is a good example. It was leg day, as you know, and the front of the room, I'm trying to remember. The front of the room the front of the room was just trainer time. Like you just did what you were doing, didn't have to pay attention to like how many reps you were doing. And the back of the room was count your reps. And it's so funny how my mindset changed, and not necessarily in like a negative way, but the exercises just got so much harder when I had to count to 10 or 12 or 15. I wasn't doing anything any harder. Honestly, the front of the room was harder. It's just that rep count wasn't in my way.
Why do you think that is?
I really don't know. Like there was a camp last week that was insane. I'm pretty sure Mike wrote it. That like you had to do like 50 of something and then 75 of something and 100 of something. And before it even started, I caught myself being like, okay, well, I'm going to survive this, but I'm not hitting those rep counts. There's no way. I can't do that. And then it did kind of cause me, once I got into it, to think like, well, why can't you? And I didn't. Like 75 heavy bag flips was one of the things we had to do. And I'm like, you're crazy. Like I'm so proud of the people that can do that, but I think I did like 30 and I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, maybe it goes back to having a hard time setting goals. Like when that goal gets put in front of me, I'm like, oh crap. Like it messes with me mentally.
Do you perceive it to be an issue that you're working on, that goal setting in the macro and the micro aren't things that you perceive to be good at yet?
Yeah. I try to just kind of check myself when that negativity creeps in and someone does say like, oh, do 50 squats. Like I try to just ignore the number and like, if I get to 40, instead of being like, oh, I have 10 more to go, I'll be like, do 2 more. Now you're at 42. Do 3 more. Now you're at 45. Now you only have 5 to go. That's easy. Like bust it out. Instead of worrying like, how am I going to do 50 of this without falling on the floor?
Yeah, that's it's interesting, the connection between the way that you'll set goals in the macro and in the micro, because I feel like if you actually go to put your macro goals on paper, your North Star goals on paper, you'll have no problem doing it, even though you sit here and tell me that I have trouble with setting goals. Here's what it might be. It might be that you're just setting your goals too low. It might be that, hey, why am I'm setting this goal for? I'm already there. I'm already doing it. And maybe the fact that when you look at a weight in the gym or you look at a rep count in the gym and you have that same hesitation to it, you just break it down in small chunks and you start hitting it. It seems like you're doing that in the macro just without committing fully to this direction of which you want to take your life. The hardest thing to ever do is to wander without direction, right? To not have, like, if you go from California to Los Angeles, that's, New York to Los Angeles, that is, you can do that. You just know you just keep driving, right? You keep driving that way. But if you wanted to go to like the Louis Vuitton on Sunset Boulevard or something like that, like you're going to have a struggle finding that because it's if you don't have a GPS, because it's such a pinpointed destination, right? And when you are in the gym every day and you have those doubts, like that's what I love about Burn, is that you get the opportunity to overcome yourself in your bigger doubts, which manifest themselves in ways of a rep count in your case, like being a little bit, how would you language it? Are you nervous of the rep count? Is it intimidating? Is it?
I think I just tend to doubt myself.
Okay.
That's my first response, I think, with anything. Like, there's always that self-doubt that's there. Like,
where does that come from?
I don't know if it's just not having, like, a confident role model to look up to growing up. Like, having parents, especially a mom, because I had a relationship with her, and, like, seeing her just be, like, so down on herself. Like, one thing I remember about her is we'd be out and about, and someone would say, like, how's your day going? She never said, like, it's great. It was always like, oh, it's not bad. Like, it could be better. Like, just even that tiny little thing just sticks with me. Because, we would go shopping or do whatever. And it was never just, I'm having a great day. And that's something that, like, I try to be cognizant of. Like, at work in the morning when we're having, like, a meeting and people are like, how's your day going? I try to say, it's great. Or great so far, or, whatever. Or just legitimately tell them about it. Like, oh, it's raining and the kids were crabby, but now they're at school and I'm here and I'm ready to have a great day. So yeah, I think that's what it is. Like, I just didn't have a role model to look up to who carried themselves in a confident way. And so I just didn't really either.
Do you think that's part of the reason that pulls you to the gym, is that you're overcoming yourself, those little baked in doubts, that you get the opportunity to overcome those every day?
100%. And it's not like, when I think about like soccer and growing up as an athlete, like you were only as good as like the goals that you scored or the games that you won. Like Burn, there is like an end goal, but no one, like the only person who knows that end goal is you. And like, it's not like, oh, if you didn't hit those reps, like you didn't do a good job today. No one knows if I did 75 bag flips or not. I know I did as hard as I could, but like, there's not like a score sheet, I guess, at Burn. Like you go in there and you do the best you can and you give it your all, or at least I try to give it my all. And yeah, like I'm as good as I like hold myself to being at the gym. There's no one telling me like, yeah, you did that, but you could have done better.
Yeah, but you know though, right? Yeah,
yes.
you know. And it's what I hear you saying is that you are believing in yourself more as you do more activity that introduces doubt to you, and you overcome it in small ways.
Yeah. And
there's do you feel that the hesitancy is conscious to set, let me ask this, is it important to you to have a more clear and specific direction? Or do you truly enjoy living in the present moment, day by day, without having a goal ahead of you to guide your attainment?
I think, at least at this point in my life, I kind of do just enjoy like being in the present. And I don't know if it's, my husband is like very goal oriented and very driven by his career. And like, I don't know if that's part of it. Like, I love my job, but it's like I'm not passionate about it. But I think that's fine. I'm passionate about other things as long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing, which I do like 98% of the time. So it could just be that like he's so driven and he has such like a clear-cut plan for like his growth that maybe I'm just kind of riding along with him and supporting him in that, and like, I don't know, maybe I'm being like a passenger princess a little bit.
Is that what your goal would be? Is that do you see that as support role being a role that can manifest the life for your children that you see maybe you didn't have? Because there's no right or wrong answers here. This is just you.
Yeah.
This is me asking so you can explore yourself a little bit.
I think so. I mean, he has passion in like his career. And so I think naturally, like he has a place he wants that to go. I'd be fine if I do the job I have now until we get to retire one day. Like if I build that team of people under me, that's awesome. If I don't and continue to be where I'm at, that's fine too.
Do you mean fine like your mom would use the word fine, or do you mean fine like fine as in like meaning good?
Good.
Okay.
I think my passions just lie outside of that. Like I'm passionate about just being someone that my kids can look to and say, I want to live my life like that. Not that I want like carbon copies of myself, because I'm not perfect, but I'm just passionate about giving them like that role model that I didn't have. So
then here's the answer to what the missing piece is. What does that role model that they never had look like? Because your husband, no matter how much you are in support of his goals and ambitions, you are still an individual you. Mm-hmm. And he's still an individual him. And individuality, happiness is individual. Fulfillment is on an individual. You come together and amplify it. But there's never been a marriage, a courtship where one side's miserable and one side's happy and the happy side wins.
Yeah.
No, usually the miserable side wins, right?
Yes.
Which is not you, not me. But there's plenty of people out there that are like that. It really has to be self-actualization on one side and self-actualization on the other side, and then doing that together and getting to the same frequency. And And I think it's a beautiful goal if that is what you truly want. And I think that's the next question you have to ask yourself is like,
Yeah.
is this what I truly want? Is this, am I saying this to say it, to have an answer, or is this the answer? You know, and I don't think anybody knows that but you, but it's very powerful to hear you talk about wanting to be a role model. And a lot of times when I talk North Star with people, they'll try to emulate somebody else's version of a North Star when it's really not what they wanted at all to begin with. And so maybe you do have it. Maybe you don't need to look so hard for it, because if it's being a role model for the kids, all you have to do is define what that now means. Here's a question. What are some of the characteristics from a personality perspective that you have, that you have, that are easy for you, that you think you have but are working on, and that you don't have, that you have to develop? It's kind of three buckets. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. What I know I have, kindness is a big one. It's just so important to me to be kind to people. I don't care what my kids end up doing. They could be the most successful people in the world. If they're jerks and they're mean, like, I'm not going to be proud of them. If they work at McDonald's, but they're the nicest human in the world, not the nicest human in the world, but you know what I mean? Like, if they're just genuinely kind people who are accepting of everyone and love everyone, then I'm going to be proud of them. And I do consider myself a very kind person, and that's something that it is like one of my pillars. What else? I think confidence is something that I'm working on. It is something, though, that I try to instill in them. Like, today I'll go home and tell my son, my daughter won't really understand, obviously, like, hey, guess what I did today? And I was so nervous, like, literally wanted to throw up the whole time I was driving there. Sat in the parking lot and took deep breaths, and I was scared and I was sweaty, but I did it, and I'm so proud of myself now. Just being that example to him, that's like, I have been, when I like got the email about this a few weeks ago, my first inclination was just to delete it and act like it never happened. And it sat in my inbox for a couple of days, and then finally I was just like, if you don't do this, you're going to hear these podcasts come out of these people and know that you could have been one of them, and you're going to regret it. So just go. Like, what's holding you back? Like, what's the worst that could happen? So confidence is something that I am making like a genuine effort to work on. And then something that I don't have that I would like to, it could be that drive toward, I have drive, but like you said, like, I don't think it's not like, I'm not laser focused on anything, at least at this point in my life, which could change 5-10 years down the road. I think part of it, like, we're just, as a family right now, we are in such like a transition. Like, my job is kind of evolving into something. I have a son who's about to go into kindergarten. I don't know what the heck that's going to look like for the next 12, 18 years of our lives, having like a kid in school. And maybe that's why right now I'm just kind of focusing on the present, because there's a little bit of like unknown coming it's good unknown, but like, I don't know what my life is going to look like in August. What's my daily schedule going to be with dropping him off to school? Am I going to have to switch up my gym routine? He's going to be at home with me after kindergarten. What's that going to look like? So maybe that's a little bit why I'm just kind of like, I don't know, I'm just here right now.
Do you value that certainty, or do you not like it? Do you like the uncertainty of not knowing what's coming down the line, or does that give you a little bit of, I am a knower, I like to know, I want to know things, I don't like this not knowing? I
kind of like a shakeup every now and then, so okay. I'm excited. I think my husband would say the exact opposite.
What would he say?
That he hates like not being in control and not knowing what's coming down the line, where I'm just like, you know what? Like, it is what it is. We're going to roll with it. We'll figure it out together. And 3 weeks into kindergarten, we're going to feel like we've been doing this forever. Like,
right. There's a sense of security of the uncertainty in the future. Like, I don't know what it's going to bring, but it's going to bring something good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I just don't worry about it much.
that's a good exercise to go into a little bit more, because you have a good start, right? It's like the 3 buckets. What am I exuding that I know is in alignment with the higher version of myself? This is all the self-awareness process, getting to know ourselves better. What is helping me evolve? What is not helping me evolve? And what am I unsure about?
Yeah.
Right. That is whether it is or it isn't. And I've personally been on a journey to eliminate what doesn't help me evolve. And the prerequisite is knowing what, through the process of having a feeling, being in a situation, not liking the feeling, in that moment, stopping and saying, why don't I like this feeling? What is going on right now it's almost a mini meditation where you stop and you consider the discontentment. Why am I feeling this way? Oh, it wasn't because of what my husband or wife said. It was because I woke up 10 minutes later than I wanted to, and my kids were running my day, and I didn't get it started the right way, and therefore now, and it's really an interesting self-exploration tool to be able to take your personality traits and to divide them up versus what's serving you and what's not serving you. And all these little exercises, that we're talking about are just ways to get to know yourself better. For example, I will, in this meeting right now, I will have a version of myself. It's part of self-awareness. I'll have a version of myself that's called the shadow version. And it will be sitting over there in that corner in a chair. You're not going to see it. I'm not really going to acknowledge it, but I know it's there. And after our meeting, then I'm going to ask myself, or I'm going to ask the shadow, where did that go right? Where did that go wrong? How can we get better? What do we want to eliminate? And it's this constant dialogue with one another. And I say one another like it's another person. It is. It's that outside perspective. That's not you. It's just your consciousness, really. Yeah. That's not you. And do you ever think about self-analyzation? Do you ever dive into self-awareness? Do you meditate? Talk to me about, when I say spirituality, I don't mean religion, although that's a part of it. What I mean is, are you getting to know yourself better?
I think, yes. Like I was saying earlier, like going to burn and putting so much effort into yourself physically, I think just naturally makes you want to take a look at your life in so many other ways. And when you were saying like noting that feeling in yourself when you're in a situation that you don't like, I definitely have been paying more attention to that piece of myself probably the last year or so. Like one of the big one, when I started going to burn originally, I was still like breastfeeding my daughter. And so I would wake up I wanted to be home by the time she woke up, just to like be there to, be able to do that. And I would wake up and like pump and then go to burn and come home. And that obviously, I was like depleting myself before I even went to the gym and depleted myself. And so through that, I kind of realized like, back then, like the kids would go to bed and when I would unwind, I'd have like a glass of wine, or I wouldn't like get drunk. That's something that I just don't enjoy doing at this point in my life, because I'm like in my 30s and it's just not fun anymore. But, I would have that glass of wine and then I would wake up and breastfeed my daughter, and then I'd go to the gym, and then at the gym I'd realize like I don't feel good. And so it would be like, I thought about it and I'm like, well, why don't I feel good? Well, maybe I shouldn't have a glass of wine the night before I have to wake up at 5 a.m. to completely rid myself of all of my nutrients and then go work out at the gym for 45 minutes. And, since then, like, I really don't drink during the week anymore. And on the weekends, I might have like a glass of wine. But I think through like taking that out of my life, now I'm kind of at a point where I'm like, I don't even see the point in drinking. Like, it doesn't make like my time with friends any more fun. I think like before, being in college and like going to parties and having like a little bit of social anxiety, it helped like ease that. But now it's like, it serves no purpose for me anymore. And that doesn't mean I don't do it. Like I do enjoy a drink every now and then, but that, and then like, I've definitely been more aware of like my phone lately, and it's kind of the same thing. Like, why am I waking up in the morning and scrolling on Instagram? Like, I don't care what these people have to say. It's fun, like, to see what my favorite influencer bought at Nordstrom the other day or what's on sale on Amazon, but do I actually care about it? Or would I have more enjoyment by picking up a book and reading it, or just like sitting out on the deck with my cup of coffee? And so I've been really conscious about like not feeling like when I do get on Instagram, because like I do, like there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't feel the need to like see every single thing that everyone has posted, because I've just kind of gotten to a place where like, I don't care.
Yeah, you're growing.
I seek out, I'll have like 100 people's stories to watch, and instead of like sitting there for an hour wasting time watching all of it, I might scroll through and be like, oh, what did my sister-in-law do? What did this influencer buy? Like, what advice does this podcaster have to give me? Outside of that, though, like, I don't care anymore. Like, it doesn't serve me.
There's a lot of growth in what you're saying. Do you feel that your journey, that Burn has been a part of that growth, self-actualization process? And do you feel it? It seems to me, meeting you for the first time now, that you've had a lot of it, probably more than you're consciously aware of, from a less than ideal upbringing to being able to, I mean, you're on the brink of considering like what I call evaporating the chain, not just breaking it, not just showing your kids that, hey, alcohol doesn't serve you, but you're on the brink of elimination. Now, putting pressure on ourselves to do so is unnecessary. Seek your direction and it will find you if it's part of your direction, right? That's part of the being present. That's part of the giving up to control, is having some directional conversation. And then I meditate to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I try not to control the circumstances or say, I'm not going to drink because, drinking, it's like, no, you just stop doing it one day. A famous quote said, I'm going to lose 30 pounds in 30 days. It's like, well, it's 31 days until you gain your first pound back, right? Like, it's not something that can be bound by time. And you just have a lot of growth spiritually and through your self-actualization journey, and through all the areas that we've talked, all the areas that, you care about, and to the degree that you can have a direction, there seems to be one, and which would then lead me to the conclusion that you're happy with the way things are right now.
Yeah.
If you weren't completely happy, what's one or two little things, those things that you've been trying to get better at? Maybe it's something in the gym, maybe just for some people, it's something like alcohol, which you just explained. That seems to be one of the things that, we who wrestle with substances always deal with, is like, is this thing really serving me anymore? That journey is very apparent. Is there anything that you have that you're trying to, hey, I really want to make some progression in this area, and it's just not happening? Anything at all?
Inside the gym, I think I'm to the point where like leg day today, we're like doing certain moves and I'm like, my back hurts, and my back hurts because I'm not doing this right. And for a while it was like, well, I would like make an excuse. Well, no, your back hurts because your legs aren't that strong, but that's not true. I played soccer my whole life. My legs are very strong. So I'm kind of to the point, at least with my fitness journey, where I'm not going to pick up that heavy weight because it's going to hurt my back. I'm like, no, I'm going to book a focus meeting and talk to a trainer about, why is this hurting my back? I'm going to work on it. And then I am going to be able to pick up an 80-pound weight to do, whatever we're doing, instead of just holding myself back and being like, I probably could deadlift, that weight, but I don't want my back to hurt, and I'm not going to do anything to fix it. Outside of the gym, like, I don't know. I think I think I'm just kind of coasting right now because I have done a good bit of work, and I am at a point right now that I genuinely am just happy. Like, it's not that I've never been happy before. It's just, I can look at my life and like, I'm just content right now. So I'm kind of just enjoying the contentment.
Yeah. And I think the trick is to stay there, right? Stay in peace and stay in contentment. happiness is fleeting.
Yeah.
But you can stay in peace. You know, happiness is subject to your definition of happiness and then other people's actions. It can be. But I think true presence is attained through meditation. If you haven't tried to incorporate meditation, it gets this rap of being like for the gurus and the Buddhists and the people sitting that, you know, in like a weird position and, you know, meditation position, and their fingers are up on their arm. They got incense and all this. Have you ever tried it before? Might be something that really helps you, especially for somebody who's already so introspective. Yeah. And you've had to do a lot of work to get to where you are in life. So congratulations on that. But there's always goals, right? And I think part of your present being is that you've given up control of all direction in a sense. And I think we need to dial in and get some specificity and get some direction, north, south, east, west. Yeah. Where are we really going here? So that, you know, humans tend to go in a circle. And if you don't pick a direction, you're going to naturally just go in a circle and end up right in the same place, which could be a place that you're like, I'm happy about going in a circle. Well, that's a north direction, is like, I'm going to live my life day by day and stay in peace and harmony. And in order to do that, as life throws its curveballs at you, as you know, there's going to be no shortage in your life or my life of other people passing away. There's going to be no shortage of tragic moments, opportunities that we have to be the strong person in our family, the shoulder that gets cried on, and you don't need to have somebody else's shoulder. You are the shoulder. Is to me, that next level of self-actualization comes more in that spiritual realm where it could be religion. Religion is beautiful, and religion is a gateway from the physical world to the spiritual world. And you can really ascend and become a better version of yourself by emulating or not any religious philosophy. But what I really mean is the transcendence of that, to be all knowing, all loving, right? Like to sit down with yourself, to have 20 minutes, 30 minutes where you literally close your eyes, and like a trained German shepherd, you can train your mind to sit and stay. Like, don't go wandering off over into the, you know, negative emotion realm brain, or don't get too happy or too positive over here, because then you're going to set yourself up for false expectations when something does come crashing down. But it just allows me to stay even keeled and stay in peace and contentment, regardless of what happens. And, you know, it might be interesting for you to give that a shot. Yeah. It might be. It will take some commitment. It'll take 30, 60, 90 days of doing it every other day to really start to feel just like working out. Yeah. Right. Just like working out your muscle. You're working out your ability to stay present. And that's a superpower. Like, that's a superpower. And if nothing can make you react in a negative way, or nothing can make you react in a positive way, like nothing outside of you, nothing external. Not to say that you don't get frustrated here and there, or you don't, you know, see like positivity and happiness ever. But I hope you understand the difference between like you internally making that choice versus somebody else making you feel frustrated because they cut you off in traffic, or because they, you know, you see the person slamming on their horn because somebody cut them off in traffic. And as somebody who is always in the present moment, anger, frustration, fears tend to dissipate through the practice of meditation. So I would love to just, if you're open to it, to give you with that little prescription. Yeah. I'll share when we leave here a couple guided meditations you can do.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, I got you. It's hard, but looking for that it seems like you're in this place where everything's going well. You've got a lot of peace. You've got a lot of serenity. You're able to stay in the present moment. You've got maybe a directional conversation to have with you and the family, and put some things down on paper, but nothing that you're already not working on on an everyday basis. Okay, so then what's next? I don't know. You don't know. the only entity that knows is the universe or God.
Right. And
so being able to give up control and submit, right? Even, and you don't have a ton of direction, which is great. Somebody like me, I'm like, I gotta go. This was my former 20-year-old self. I gotta go do this thing at this time, at this place, and make this amount of money and this amount of gyms and do all these material things, to the point where the ego completely took over for a couple years.
Yeah.
And I needed to unwind. I needed to unwind that. I started with, it's called TD, transcendental meditation.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to start you off on that and see if you like it. It'll be good. It's if you've never meditated before, get ready for about 5 or 6 sessions of frustration before it starts to click. Okay.
Okay.
You commit to 10 of them for me.
Yeah.
All right. Commit to 10 of them, and we'll keep in touch and make sure that happens. It's been a really interesting conversation, Lindsay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. As we move forward in our relationship, is there anything that stuck out to you today that you would like some help between myself and Concord holding you accountable to, or anything that struck a chord that you're really gonna explore?
Lots of things. I mean, the meditation for one, and just I definitely want to do that exercise of writing down the ideal day and just see what that looks like, where that goes. As far as Concord, probably the accountability of not just saying I'm going to book a focus meeting to work on my forms so my back doesn't hurt when I do deadlifts and glute bridges. I need to actually do that, not just, I know I need to do it, I just need to do it. Yeah, that's probably it. I do a pretty good job of getting there. I can kind of look at my day, and I will honestly move whatever I need to move to make sure that I'm there, because it just, the days that I don't go, I just don't feel as good, which is kind of annoying now about burn, because I'm I lived 33 years and didn't feel like this, and now I'm if I don't go do this thing, my day is ruined. But yeah, probably just being more consistent with setting those focus meetings and staying on that path of the goals that I set. I mentioned, nutrition isn't something that I've ever paid a ton of attention to. My husband and I, we're kind of opposites. I grew up in a family that, the meals were always home cooked. He kind of grew up in a family that it was a lot of takeout, just by virtue of his mom was a flight attendant and she traveled all the time and was out of town. When my husband's out of town, I do tend to work in a Chick-fil-A night or, something just to give me a break. But I know that nutrition piece of it is something that would take me to the next level if I learn about it and stick to it. So that's something that I'll definitely explore down the road.
How do you feel about your nutrition? How do you define nutrition today?
I feel good when I'm sitting down to eat, there's a protein and a vegetable and color on my plate. I don't pay a ton of attention to calories and stuff right now. I know if I did, the transformation that I see when I look in the mirror would be tenfold. But yeah, I mean, I try to make healthy choices, but also I like eating ice cream, and I'm not gonna not eat ice cream. Not that I do it every day, but yeah, I feel good if the majority of my meals were eaten at home, because I know no matter what it is that we're having at home, it's healthier than having that same thing out at a restaurant. And so at this point, I feel good that we're at least accomplishing that. With busy lives and 2 parents that work, that's something that is super important to me. So yeah, I guess that's my answer.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because you had said when we were talking about the lifestyle pieces of the pie, you had said that, hey, you know, I go to the gym for my confidence. I'm not going there for like some arbitrary six pack or like some body image, right? And so that would make sense that, you know, when you think about food, that you define it accordingly, right? You don't necessarily define it as you define it as something that, you know, you want to eat healthy most of the time because you know that's going to give you the return on your food. I would like to offer, as we end here, just as you explore deeper, I'd like to offer you a different perspective on food. And this is all, you know, what I've noticed here, Lindsay, is that out of the 8 pieces of the pie, a lot of this is like from your physical gains, like with your back and lifting more weight, to eliminating even little things that don't help you evolve. To me, a lot of this goes back to that spiritual bucket where it's like, my recommendations would be like yoga, meditation. And when you start doing those things, and you're in those environments, the environment where it's you and yourself, and maybe you're doing some guided meditation or you are doing some yoga at Burn or on our app or whatever, you've got that little voice in your head, and it's in a way teaching you about the energy balance of the world. Like that's what meditation and spirituality is all about, is finding the energy balance. And I look at food now as I go through my journey much, much differently than I did when I didn't really start it. Now to me, food is either a positive energy or a negative energy, right? And I look at something and I'm like, and I look at it and I can see how it feels. And I'm like, that's negative energy or that's positive energy, regardless of how it tastes.
Yeah.
There's some things that taste really good that are positive energy, and there's some things that taste really bad that are negative, right? It doesn't always have to be like the good things are always bad for you. And once I started correlating food with energy and seeing it as the energy it would be in my body, I started gaining this, and it didn't happen overnight. It was a very slow, and it was in correlation with how many times I would meditate and how many times I would get outside of myself for a moment, just long enough to see that food is actually energy that is made to fuel our lives. And you hear that all the time, I'm sure, like food is fuel, not whatever. Yes, that's true, but it goes so much deeper than that. It's the positive energy that you want to be, that you want to put out into the world. You're eating this food, you're consuming it, you're breaking it down, it's changing state, and it's coming back out of you, right? And it's almost like the food that comes in is also you are what you eat, but you are what you ate. You are what you ate had already eaten, and you are what you had eaten's already ate, plus the way that those beings, plants, animals were in what state they were in the moment you ate them. And so it's really, everything is connected energetically together. And that's the one thing that helped me with food, because I also don't correlate it to some body image, right? Because you could say like, I need to eat egg whites every day because I need to have a six pack. It's like,
those days are behind me.
Yeah, those days are behind me too, my friend. So now it's like, how much energy can you have? Because energy is alignment to my North Star, which is to be the energy for my family. And so a lot of your journey seems to be in continuing to find yourself at deeper and deeper and deeper levels. And the certainty the uncertainty and that balance we were talking about earlier will be found in you as you find yourself, and it will come. And the journey's never done. It'll come out of left field, and the journey's never done. And we always are looking for the better, higher version of ourselves. So there you go. Now you're a yogi after today's meeting. You used to be a yogi now.
I did used to do yoga.
It helps a ton. It really does. Lindsay, anything else that you can think of that you wanted to cover today? I felt like we covered a lot.
Yeah.
We really did. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm glad that I didn't ignore that email and stepped out of my comfort zone. And I'm really glad that I found Burn. Like I had heard stories and like I knew a little bit about it, but I could not have even imagined like all of the good that it would do in my life. Like I would just want to like kick myself. Like I said, I used to work like right there. You guys obviously are based right here. Like, why didn't we meet each other back then? It like makes me mad because I'm like, where would I be now? But also I look at myself in last year. I mean, I've only been at Burn for 1.5 years. So like, where am I going to be 10 years down the road? So yeah, I'm just excited. I'm happy that I came here and had this conversation and filled out that form. I didn't ever think that would turn into this.
Well, I'm glad that you did as well, and it's nice to make a new friendship. And I hopefully we can get you back in a few months, and we can pick it up here, and you can talk about any journeys that you've made from now until then.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, make sure you leave a review for us on Apple Podcast. And that is it for today. Thank you, Lindsay Strickert from Concord, North Carolina. That is our focus meeting. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.